Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me on this Friday, May 19th in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. Today, As the World Turns alum and an old friend of mine from my days at the Walt Disney Studios, Bronson Picket, joins me to look back at his time playing Diego Santana or Umberto Malzone in Oakdale and Bay City, where he played the malevolent Scott Guthrie on Another World. Bronson also spent 4 years playing Joe Lozano on Any Day Now with Annie Potts and Lorraine Toussaint. In addition to guest starring roles on several other series and films, he was cast as the lead in the Lifetime series Wild Card with Jolie Fisher and Ray Dong Chong. Bronson opted to retire from show business to remain in New York City with his wife and 2 children. He started what would be the first of several companies in the telecommunications and technology space. He has also made appearances on Hostages and the Mysteries of Laura after that retirement and promised his manager if something small popped up that wouldn't take him away from his family, he would consider those roles here and there. Well, I hope those here and there roles come up more often. Please welcome my friend Bronson Picket to the Locher Room. Hey, Bronson.
Hey, Alan. Good to see you, my man.
It is so good to see you. As we said backstage, it's been a very long time.
Yes, it has. Embarrassingly long, in fact. These are the numbers that my parents and my parents' friends would talk about when I was little and say, "Oh, I remember when you were this age." My gosh, they're so old. And now I'm saying the same thing. It's horrible.
150%. Absolutely. I don't think I thought my parents' friends at this age looked that good.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, that somebody sent a clip to me recently of the various actors in different television shows and what their age was at the time, whether it was Norman Fell on Three's Company, whether it was Wilfred Brimley in Cocoon. And when I realized, my God, I'm about the same age as they are, or in those shows, and I thought they were so old. Humility
It's
just
funny.
settled.
Well, let's go back to those Disney days. I started to say this to you backstage. I don't recall. What was your career path when we first met?
So that's the funniest thing. When you and I first met, I wasn't even acting. I had no desire to act whatsoever. I was a theater major at Hamilton College, but the only one who did not want to act. My real passion was singing. I was in a band, and that was where I thought I was going to find my stardom or my joy. Because I loved it. To this day, I still love singing, but I wanted to develop stage presence. I was actually, believe it or not, torn between theater or physics as a major, but went theater because
complete opposite spectrums.
Yeah, just a little bit, right? Unless I'm going to be playing Einstein in a role at some point. But what had happened was the band that I was in for many years in New York City, we played at CBGB's, we played at Continental and a bunch of other, and Mercury Lounge, broke up for all the reasons that bands do, not the same vision, girlfriend, whatever. And I finally decided, I love singing, but I don't want to depend on 3 to 4 other guys for the success of my career. While I didn't have any desire to act before, I did enjoy acting when I was in college. As a major, it was something that was fun. Yeah, maybe it's just take another look into that. So I started taking classes again, and I joined an improv troupe, which I was with for about a year. And it was during that time that I found a manager, and the manager pretty quickly got me booked on what to me was one of my favorite experiences of all time, and that was As the World Turns.
Wow. I wonder, did I ever see your band? Were you in a band during that
Yes,
time?
yes, you were great. You don't even remember how supportive you were. Gosh dang it, Al. So yeah, we were we were playing at the Continental. You and some of the other gang from Disney came down and supported the band when we were with a band called Pole.
I hate when I can't remember shit like that.
How much were you drinking? It was such.
It could be.
It was very loud.
Well, I think it's really just doing so much in your career.
Yeah.
At that time, also working at Disney, I worked on 200 movies.
Yes, that's
I think your brain can only hold so much.
I think you could be right about that. And you're right. I remember how hard you guys were working all the time, especially as Disney was acquiring more and more studios, and it just became this ginormous amount of
during that time. Yeah, during that time, it was enormous. Wow, that is incredible. What a great story and journey. Take me back to that first audition for As the World Turns. What do you remember?
So I was actually originally auditioning for another character. Originally, it was for a character named Paul, and what had happened
Oh,
was that
probably Colleen Zank's son, Paul Ryan,
exactly,
one
and
of the replacements.
that's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And what had happened in the course of my auditioning, the John Valenti, who was the executive producer at the time, realized that, you know what, I don't think this is the right role for you, but there is another character here that I think would be perfect, and that's where the Diego Santana character came into my life, and it just clicked. Fortunately, I studied like heck with my acting coach at the time, and did it over and over again until I got calm enough and relaxed enough to do it passively in the audition. And much to my surprise and angst, I got the part. And in fact, I remember very well when I got the news of the role that I had gotten, just the sweats began. Like, oh, I got to do this now. Oh, wow! It's only been decades that this show has been on the air. One of the oldest, longest running. So, oh god, so you start feeling the jitters. But it was such a great experience. I love it really more than just about anything
So
else that
wait,
I've
so
done in my
no
life.
cell phone at the time. So
Yeah.
they left a message or called you or what?
Well, here's what I had at the time. Well, I don't know if we had the Nokias, but I did have a beeper. This beeper was left over from my modeling days when prior to to the acting piece. In order to make money while I was in the band, I was modeling, and so we always had to have a beeper with us for the go-sees that we had to go with our book, which many people think of as a portfolio, but when you're a model, you call it a book, and that has all your different photos and ads and everything else that you've done. So this beeper, we're going to talk about old tech, would mean I would take a quarter and put it in a payphone, kids, and which you don't see around the city anymore. And that's exactly how I learned that I'd gotten the part. My manager had sent a notification to my beeper. I gave him a call. Holy moly! And I got the part. So that was very exciting.
Did you have to screen test with anybody?
That's a great question. I'm trying to remember. I know I must have. Because I remember when later on when I was doing Another World that I'd screen tested with folks, but I can't remember. I can't recall whether I did for
Yeah,
As the
no,
World
that's
Turns.
okay. That's okay. Do
And
you remember your first day on set?
yes, that I remember crystal clear. So this is the funny thing. You get there very early in the morning. It's not like a 9 to 5 job. You're there about like 6:30 because there's a lot of stuff that has to get done. So you're up a lot earlier still. And I remember not knowing what to expect, and I went into a conference room where there were a bunch of other actors from the show sitting in there looking at the day's script, which of course I'd already memorized everything, and there they had it as well. But they were going through their lines with a fine-tooth comb because they were really not happy with a lot of the stuff that was written. And they say, "Oh, can you believe they did this, that, or the other?" Now, this is not as a result of ego. This was something that I came to learn was really because of their deep care for the audience. Their feeling was, "Hey, look, we know this show because some of us have been here for a long time, even better than some of the newer writers coming on, and the writers were terrific, but the actors had a long history with the character." And what they wanted to make sure is that the audience was never getting shortchanged by some of the stuff that was being written there, as if that character didn't have a history. It's like, oh, now we've got to change this, we've got to change this. And but I remember being very intimidated by that. And one of the people in the room, Brooke Alexander, who played Samantha, she loved her. She was absolutely terrific. She could see me looking a little intimidated by everything. She came over, said, like, I know this seems a little overwhelming. Everything's going to be fine. You're going to be great. Don't worry about it. And here's the thing that really made me just fall in love with her. When the time came for me to do my first scene, we'd already done the blocking, which is basically the rehearsal where you're moving and standing, all that other fun stuff. By the time I was supposed to be shooting all of this, I'm standing in front of Brooke. She has her hand on my shoulder because she was playing a character who was blind, who was going to be led around by me. And the director was about to call for action. And then she held up her hand. She goes, "Oh, hold on a second. Hold on a second." She comes over to me, whispers in my ear, "Bronson, this is the first time you're going to be doing this. It's going to be the last time that it's going to be your first time. So look around, take everything in, enjoy every moment." How do you not fall in love with someone who does that, right?
Wow.
And just, God, just the absolute best. And I took her advice and did exactly that, which is probably why I remember when that first scene was shot more so than any screen test that would have happened, because that's exactly what I did. I just looked around at everything, took it all in, realized this was going to be the last time it was my first time, and
what a generous gift.
oh yeah, she did stuff like that all the time. She's just one of the most wonderful human beings on the planet, and which is why we maintained a friendship for many years afterwards. She's just absolutely terrific.
That really is a gift. I hear some things along the way, of various first days, but that's a new one. That I love that.
Yeah, that really was something. And in fact,
Because
later on,
we are. I mean, you walk in, no matter me going to a public relations job, your first day is always a little nerve-wracking, and I can only imagine.
Exactly. It's so nice to have someone who you feel like is in your corner. And by the way, remembering that lesson when Kerr Smith came on, because he was a friend of mine before, and I brought him. I brought him to the casting directors and say, hey, I think my friend here would be good for this part. When he was shooting his first scene, I did the exact same thing. I went over to him and said, by the way, Kerr, and I said the same exact words, which I don't think had quite the same impact as it would from this, 5'11", blonde, blue-eyed, gorgeous supermodel-looking
But
woman.
those things do have an impact. It's funny because you make me think of somebody said about my wedding that my husband and I should stand.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It's a while ago, but that we should stand in the back of the room and look to see everybody who's there, so like sort of those same things. So I've done the same thing. And other people I know who get married, I say, take a step in the back of the room, look around that whole, wedding, small, large, everybody's there for you. And just
I was given that same advice and did the exact same thing. And I remember, and I think about this now as well, because I took that moment as you did, thinking how unusual it was that all these people from different areas of my life, of my wife's life, never could I have imagined that they would all come together for this one moment. And the only reason all these people have crossed the paths and will probably never cross paths again is because of you and because of your wife. And what a weird and wonderful experience. But yeah, but you're right.
Another great piece of advice.
That is true.
It's such a great piece of advice. Talk about the late Elizabeth Hubbard and her impact on you.
Yeah. So Liz, I did so many scenes with Liz, and it's so funny. She had such a profound effect on me, much more so than she even knows. When I told her at one point, but I still don't think she realized. She was so demanding when it came to making sure, like she was one of the people who, as much as you think she cared about what the audience wanted, she cared even more. She really wanted to make sure that everything that was being said was true to the character. She wanted to make sure that everyone was taking the material seriously, the actors, the director, everyone, because she really cared about the final product. And some people who, seeing from the outside might not know any better, and they think, oh, this is just an actor, stroking their ego. No, it's not. It was not about herself. It was really about everyone else. And I remember thinking that I can't mess up. I cannot mess up around Liz, or I'm just going to be a complete failure. And following my time on As the World Turns, whether it was on Another World, whether it was on Wild Card, any day now, it didn't matter. In my head, just as Pinocchio had his Jiminy Cricket, I had Liz Hubbard on my shoulder, and where I was trying to prove myself to her, to make sure that I was doing right, that if she was here, that she would be going, well done, or come on, you can do better than that. She was really just such a force of nature, and I'm so blessed and happy that I had the honor of working with her.
She was, great description, a force of nature. Yeah. Travis says, good afternoon. My name is Travis. I migrated to the U.S. in December of 96 and started watching As the World Turns in January of 1997, which is one of my earliest memories of living in America with Diego.
Cool. Hey, Travis, how are you? Yeah, it's back when I had the long hair.
Yeah, absolutely. You also worked really closely with Martha Byrne, Lily, who ended up, shooting you in the end.
Was it her? I knew it. Yeah, she was. Gosh, so many laughs that we would share, Martha and I, constantly, because we were also big fans of Howard Stern, and so we would always be talking about what had happened on the show that day, and and so the breakup, it was almost like church laughter, when you're sitting or in a temple where you're not supposed to be laughing, but you are. And she could turn so quickly on a dime and get into character, and it took me a moment more to get my feet back underneath me. And I was like, oh, geez, I haven't been doing this as long as she has. I really have to get better.
She was brilliant in that role.
Oh, yeah,
Brilliant
absolutely.
in that role.
Yeah, she was terrific, and
Many of the
everybody.
fans said you were very scary as Diego.
Yeah, that was, what's funny about that, when you think of the old days of Hollywood, like where Steve Reeves is Superman, or where he couldn't get cast in anything else because everyone just thought of him as that character, which is not as big a thing nowadays. However, when I first went out to Los Angeles, the question was, hey, can you play someone who's kind of nice, because you really just seem like such a bad guy. And as it turned out, I guess I could. And what had ended up happening was that after a while of doing those kind of roles, another role came along where I had to be not so nice. And the question was, you think you'd be someone who's not so nice? Like, yeah, I think I can. I think I can do it.
So funny.
By the way, it was also really funny. My mother-in-law, who was watching the show as well at the time, she she called my then girlfriend, now wife, and said, I love Bronson when I've met him, but I've seen him on the show. It seems like he has a real temper. It's like
he has a dark side.
It does. It's like, all right, I guess this is playing okay. This is okay. Maybe I can get one of those Eileen Fulton moments where I'm out in the street and someone smacks me for playing my character so well.
She used to get it a lot. She really did.
and also one of the sweetest women ever. I loved Eileen.
Me too. Ms. Eileen.
Ms. Eileen, indeed.
Ms. Eileen. Talk about the rape with Kelly Menahan.
Yeah,
what do you remember about working opposite Kelly, who I adore?
Yeah,
and I mean,
Kelly,
that must have been hard to do.
It was, yeah, because one of the things that was nice in this, that we all got along really well. We were all friends with one another, and then you'd have kind of dark scenes with one another, but this was obviously really dark, and we had to play it right and take the subject matter seriously, because it obviously is axiomatically a serious subject. So it became a different feeling on the set of, okay, jokes are over. Let's play this for keeps. Let's focus. Let's get this right. And Kelly was always like that anyway. Kelly, she was just always ready to go. She probably much more organized, both in physical reality and thought, I think, than just about anyone I know. And I wanted to make sure that I did everything right with her, and that everything that got choreographed, that no one's getting hurt, while at the same time making sure that we're nailing the intention of the character and the scene. And it was the other thing that was unique about it is, normally the way the scenes were shot were on a set with three walls. You have a wall here, you have a wall over here, and then you have the background wall, and then you have the 3 or 4 cameras shooting everything that's happening inside of that room, that are basically on wheels, and they get rolled from one way to another, but they're really these big objects. These scenes, however, were shot inside of 4 walls and then on a handheld. So now there was, on top of everything else, something about a more claustrophobic feeling, which I think lent itself well to Kelly playing Emily in that moment, who quite literally was feeling trapped by this character. Now, you can't tell with me sitting down here, or even me on the show, but I'm actually quite tall. I'm 6'3", which is a lot taller than most other people that I'm working with. So
a lot taller than Kelly.
Yes, a lot taller than Kelly. So now on top of that, you have this gigantic Sasquatch type presence who's keeping her from getting out. And she would play for keeps. She'd try to really run and get out of there, which is what you're supposed to do. And I had to physically stop her and then throw her back but also make sure she didn't get hurt. But you could feel this is a dangerous situation, a serious, and it was, but it paid off because it really everyone. I think I got more feedback about that scene than anything else that I ever did on As the World Turns.
Oh, Brett says hello. Brett Hellman.
Hey, Brett Hellman. Mwah, mwah. Love Brett.
Me too. I haven't seen Brett on here in a long time. Nice to see you, Brett. Kirk killed Diego.
Kirk. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. But Martha had the gun in her dress, in her wedding dress.
Well, well, she always had a gun in her dress. That was
in her wedding
that
dress.
Was a trademark.
Yeah, exactly. Another great person you got to work with was your sister.
Oh my gosh, Pilar. Oh man.
Exactly.
Man, Rosalind. She was someone else who I was friendly with for a while afterwards. Sean Christian, who played Mike, buddy to this day.
I watched him on World Turns, and then I've met him through this show. So he's a great guy.
Yeah, not a lot of charisma there. Holy smokes! He's great. We both, Sean and I, we would meet with Rosalind out in LA a couple times. But what's really funny, Rosalind actually went to school with one of my cousins back in Puerto Rico. That's where they grew up. And apparently my cousin was one of the popular girls at the time, and Rosalind felt like she had to live up there to her. Nah, she's fine on her own. But she was just such a sweetheart. And one of my happiest moments was when my mother got to meet Rosalind, and of course they got along, pacifier. I don't think it was like I wasn't in the room anymore. But yeah, she was just a
stunning woman.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that was one of the few people with whom I've worked that my wife felt a little threatened by. My then girlfriend, she starts like, "You've got to work with her." It's like, she's playing my sister. Oh, thank God. Yeah, that's great. That's terrific. Good.
That's great. She's playing my sister.
Right.
You never know. On a soap, it could be incest, but it wasn't.
Right, exactly. So we didn't have any Game of Thrones moment, but it was really funny actually in the early days, because there were a lot of scenes where Martha and I would be kissing. And I was explaining, like, no, these are very chaste kisses. It's not like an Italian laundromat. It's very much very chaste. And my wife was studying the video, the then VHS tapes, because she recorded every single show. God bless her. Like it was the Zapruder tape. Yep, she did every single one.
I love that.
Yeah, she was just the
that's
most
incredibly supportive. I love that.
Yeah, it really, she was the greatest, and her parents, by the way, the same thing. They would watch every single show. My mom and dad did the same thing. They'd watch every single episode, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is great. I don't know that if I watched myself that much, I don't think I could watch myself that much, but God bless them, they did. And she would so Lynn would study the videotaping. Wait a minute, that looks a lot more than a chaste kiss. I was like, no, and I literally had to sit down with her while she took me through it frame by frame. And I had to, no, it's not.
I love that. I love that. The fans are saying Kelly deserved an Emmy Award for her performance during that.
I agree. I agree completely. If for nothing else, because she was such a dastardly character herself in so many scenes, to change the dynamic in such a way that the audience went from hating her to having this remarkable sympathy for her, to creating this pathos. That's not an easy thing to do.
Good writing and good acting, those combinations really can change the whole course of a show.
Without a doubt, we were really fortunate. The writers, the writers were great. I love them, and it's funny, actors, we all have a different approach to how to look at scripts. For some actors, they want to change the script a little bit. And for me, even if there's a typo in the script, I'm going to try to figure out a way to justify it, because it's there on the page. This is my job as an actor to find out how to make that work. But I love the stuff that they wrote for us. And like I said, I really never had a more enjoyable time than I did there.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you think you learned in Oakdale that you've taken everywhere else you've worked?
Well, one thing that's really important is the camaraderie of the people on set. That if you have one person who's decided that, look, the only reason that I'm here is to use this as a stepping stone for my next big thing, or this is all about me, it's going to be an absolutely miserable set. And I've been on those sets. Nobody wants to be there. They're constantly checking their watch to see if it's time to leave, which is a horrible way to be. You'd think that, my gosh, you have one of the greatest opportunities, something that millions of people wish they could be doing, if not billions wish they could be doing, and you're looking at your watch wondering when you're going to be going home. As the world turns, on that set everywhere, hair and makeup, the production office, the lighting crew, the sound, editing, actors, everyone, we were all friends. Everybody was really kind, nice, supportive of one another. That story with Brooke, that I can't picture that happening anywhere else. And I thought, well, every set must be like this. Well, that's not true, and not every set was. So you
were spoiled on the way in the business.
I was spoiled on the way in the business. So the big thing that I learned was that if I'm ever on a set, part of my job, in addition to saying the lines and making sure that I've done all my homework and everything else, is making sure that the culture on the set is a good one. So even if somebody else is misbehaving, I can't go into that. I have to be someone who's bringing people up. And sometimes that's easier said than done, because the days can get a lot longer than people realize. When you're doing something over and over and over again, that redundancy starts hitting sometimes at your ego. Maybe you start thinking, am I not doing this good enough yet? And you have to put that aside and remember, it's not just about you. You are part of this communal group but you're just one piece of it. And if any one piece of that fails, well, then you're going to start seeing a ripple effect that makes it horrible for everyone. So that I realized with As the World Turns, I have a responsibility that extends beyond just me saying the lines in the script.
I love that. Talk about your time in Bay City.
That was cool. I'll tell you what was really surreal about that. My mother's soap was Another World. That was, so growing up, when I was a little kid, I would always ask about Mac and Rachel. Mommy, Mac and Rachel? Mac and Rachel? Yes, Mac and Rachel. That's all I was asking about all the time. So now, I'm actually working with Vicky, who played Rachel, and I'm just thinking, holy crap, I'm working with Rachel. And that was really just the coolest thing. I was
a gift you give your parents.
It was, because what's really funny too, my mom, if you asked her, she used to say this, she always imagined, even when I was little, that I would end up on one of these shows. And she pictured me coming in as the mysterious stranger in a tux who's tall and dark and is going to throw the place into turmoil. And that's almost exactly what ended up happening. And now on the very show that she would watch religiously, I'm now on it and working with the very people that I would watch as a kid. I loved that. That was
that
one of the coolest
intimidating things for you a little?
Yes. You've met Vicky. Yes. It's very much, but she was actually really kind. I had a lot of fun with her. And it was just, that was also a good friend from like Joe Barbara. He kept commenting on social media about you being here today, saying what a great guy. Joe was so cool, man. I remember when he was doing a Bronze Tale on Broadway. I think I went there like 3 or 4 times to watch him on there. He's so good. He's such a talented guy and so nice. I remember when I was on the show, he brought me to Spumoni Gardens in Brooklyn, so I get the real Spumoni, good pizza. Man, it was just the greatest guy.
I love that. And so after Bay City, you moved out to California. And Steven Schechter was asking, he says, I have the OnlyFans page on Facebook for any day now where you play the insufferable Joe Lozano.
Insufferable!
Can you share memories of working with Annie Potts and Lorraine Toussaint?
Yes. Yeah. That was, boy. Well, so what's really neat about playing...
just a couple of no names.
Yeah. You might have heard of Annie Potts, Lorraine Toussaint. That was so cool. I was having so much fun imitating my mother as this character, because this character had an accent, and of course my mother has an accent that I'm pretty sure she goes to school to maintain, not get rid of. but I would imitate her accent, but a slighter version of it. And to get paid to do that was terrific, but of course a little intimidating doing it for Annie and Lorraine. But what I learned later is there were a bunch of people on the set who didn't realize that no, indeed English is my first language. They would just speak to me in Spanish, really rapid fire, and I didn't have the heart to tell them that the Spanish I knew was as a result of what I studied in high school and junior high, and what I figured out my mother was saying when she was angry, so I could get by a little bit. But yeah, it was really neat. By the way, that was another place where I had confirmed for me what I'd learned at As the World Turns. Annie and Lorraine set the tone. So here's a little behind the scenes stuff that if you're watching this and you don't know about the set, there's something called the call sheet, and on the call sheet you have the actors' names and there's a number next to each actor, and generally that number is in the order of billing. So Annie would be number 1 on the call sheet at the time. Lorraine was number 2, and then I think Chris Mulkey might have been number 3, and so on and so forth. One of the things that I learned is that when you are number 1 or 2 on the call sheet, that responsibility of keeping the set up and the culture up is particularly heavy on your shoulders. And they did just that all the time. So you're 2 people, well known, everyone, you know who Annie Potts is, you know who Lorraine Toussaint is. But they didn't act like, oh, we've been doing this all this time. You guys are going to be marching to our tune and doing what we say. No, they were very collaborative. They were very supportive of everyone who was on, whether it was me on there, whether it was Chris, whether it was a co-star, guest star who was only going to be on there for 1 episode. Very much about the work, very much about making sure that egos, once again, were left at the door. So that was another one of the good sets that I was really privileged and blessed to work on.
Well, how did you get the role? Was that a long process?
Yeah, so for that one, so one of the things that happens when you're out in LA, you get into the audition circuit, or at least at the time. Nowadays, there are a lot more submissions by video, as I understand it. But at the time, you were going to all these different casting offices, and there were a few offices that you might not get the particular part you were going up for, but the casting director would remember you and say, you know what, that guy, he wasn't right for that role, but there's this other part that I think he's going to be perfect for. And any day now, the Joe Lozano character was one of those roles. And I went back, so I went in and I remember I did the audition, and I read with one of the directors and with Artie, and I did not like what I did, and I because when you're acting, you get a feel for when something clicks and when something doesn't. I felt like that didn't work. Now, fortunately, I'd been training with Stuart Rogers, who, as far as I'm concerned, one of the greatest acting teachers ever, and he got me into and all of us, all the students, into the habit of saying, hey, look, if you didn't feel it the first time, it's okay to ask, hey, can I do that one more time? But only if you know exactly what it is that needs to be fixed. And so that's exactly what I did. I said, can I do that scene one more time? And the director, he understood. He goes, yeah, let's try that again. The second time, nailed. And within 15 to 20 minutes, I got a call from my manager. You got the part, and that was it. And I was Joe Lozano for the next few years, and it was great.
But California wasn't your place, right?
No, it was not. California was not my place. A couple of things, you would figure that it's a car culture, and by definition, that would mean that they know how to drive. Saw no evidence of that.
God, I hate drive. I mean, I like driving out there, but I hate driving out there.
Right. It takes 20 minutes to get to your next door neighbors. But it was crazy. While I missed some of the people that I was really close to, especially who were part of my acting circle, were part of the Theater Tribe, which was the theater group that I was with out there in the Stuart Rogers Studios. For the most part, I wasn't crazy about a lot of the folks that I've met. One of the things that I came to learn if I was out and about in the world, whether it was at a bar, restaurant, is if someone didn't know who I was, not to tell them. I could say I'm Bronson, very nice to meet you, but I wouldn't tell them I was an actor or anything else, because unfortunately there were a lot of people who you could tell were assessing folks either by what they could do for them or what they couldn't do for them. If they couldn't do anything, I have no interest in talking to them any further. But if they found out that you're actually active on a show somewhere, suddenly you're getting treated differently, you're elevated a little bit, and and I was much more interested in just meeting people who enjoyed hanging out with me, and just because.
It's so funny because, when I was at Disney and worked my way up to a senior publicist, I had the opportunity, if I, sort of to move out west to be part of the team out there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for me because it was basically everybody wanted your job and I didn't want to be.
Right. Well, you also spent a lot of time with a lot of the A-listers coming in. I remember when they would come into the city, and then it was your job to make sure that they were happy, and it was amazing. You were always so professional, and that was one thing I noticed, by the way. And I know I'm not to be complimenting you, but I'm going to anyway. Sorry, is that you were always you. It wasn't like all of a sudden you became this subservient, obsequious jackass. You were always just fantastic. Where it's like, oh, look at this, Alan be Alan. Just nothing has changed. And unfortunately, it's not always easy to find those kind of people when they know that you're a working actor. That something changes.
Well, I appreciate that. While you were on Any Day Now, you met your now wife, Lynn. Is that correct?
No, we'd actually met. It was actually back when I was on As the World Turns. What had happened was, I was invited to this charity event for the New York City Ballet called Dance with the Dancers that was taking place at Lincoln Center. She was invited by her friend Nicole Miller, the designer, because she used to be one of Nicole's models, and they became very good friends. And
I know that name. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know that fashion that well, but I know that name.
Yeah, she was actually one of the bridesmaids. So she, my wife, she was sitting at another. But by the way, I remember I told this story actually on Oprah because my wife had written an article.
I wanted to talk about that. So yeah,
well, it works out for her. She'd written an article for O Magazine in praise of younger men because I'm younger than my wife.
Yeah, but the article was called "In Praise of Younger Men," and I put the link up on YouTube for anybody who wants to read it. It's a great. I read it after researching this. Great article.
Yeah, it really is fun.
I'm 9 years older than my husband.
I am 13 and a half years younger than my wife. So it was, right. You understand the dynamic. And then on top of that, normally it's usually going to be the husband that's going to be older than the wife in these situations, but not here, because somehow, some way, she manages to continue being younger than me. I don't know how she did that, but it was at that event that we met, and we started speaking. And really, within the first 5.5 seconds of her approaching the table, I think I'd already fallen in love with her. And we had our first date 5 days after that, and then, oh no, that's not true. I called her 5 days after that, for which she still hasn't forgiven me. And then we had our first date 5 days after that, and we're together ever since. And so it worked out very, very well. But yeah, that was in '96.
27 years ish.
Holy crap, was it? Yeah, good Lord, my Alan, what the heck? So old. Yeah, that was
It's about. I mean, if it was around World Turns time, it's about.
It was 27 years ago. We just had our 23rd anniversary on April 30th, which it seems impossible because I remember so vividly when we met, and again, the things that I heard from my parents, seems like yesterday. Well, yeah, it's exactly what it seems like in so many ways. When someone tells me something like music of the time, whether Pearl Jam or Stone Temple Pilots, like, oh yeah, those old bands. Old bands, the hell's the matter with you? It just everything seems so.
Do you know this little tidbit? One of the fans just said that Nicole Miller did a guest spot on As the World Turns years ago.
What? Oh my! Okay, now I have to write
with Colleen Zank, supposedly.
Is that right? Holy crap! I'm gonna have to ask her about that. Say, hey, what the hell? I was on the show, right? Yeah, me too.
So, talk about going on Oprah Winfrey with your wife to talk about this article. I mean, what was that experience like?
That was something. At the time, I was on a show called Wild Card, which was shooting in Toronto, and so the Oprah's production team, they came to shoot some B-roll on the set of me walking around, none of which got used, by the way. But I had to get some permission from my show to fly to Chicago and be there. And it was a remarkable. Here's the thing: any studio that you go into, and this used to be the joke on Letterman, remarkably cold. And the reason it's very cold is because the lights can get very, very hot, and you want to make sure that your audience stays awake and they stay chipper and energetic. Not the case in Oprah's studio. So I had always had a problem with sweating. My kidneys apparently work really, really well. So, hair and makeup constantly on almost every set I've ever been on would be patting me down between takes. Well, there was no one who was going to be patting me down consistently on this show because Oprah was the main star. And I remember sitting on the set thinking, holy Moses, I am really starting to feel the beads work up there. And Oprah hadn't come out yet. Finally, Oprah enters stage right, and she's got a leather jacket. She's got her hair all done. And I'm thinking, how is she not just a ball of puddle of water at this point, but not a drop of sweat, cool as a cucumber the entire time, no problem. So she had, I think, 3 or 4 cameras that are on the folks who are on stage. And you always know which camera is live because there's a red light on top of it. So as an actor, you become hyper aware of when that red light is on with the camera facing you. And I'd be sort of catch it out of the corner of my eye. The moment that red light was off, I would make this perfectly crescent-shaped squeegee with my thumb and forefinger, and start going up on the forehead. Make sure that, and then the moment I saw that light go off, hands are down, they're relaxed, everything's fine. No problem. It was very funny. Michelle Stafford, I think about 10 years ago, she did something called the Stafford Project, which was so funny.
Yeah.
And she had the funniest scene where she's sitting with her agent and talking, and there's a camera behind the agent. Goes, wait, is that a camera behind you? Like, oh, no, don't worry about that. It's not really shooting anything. And then at one point, while she's having a really heated conversation with her agent, someone from hair and makeup comes over and starts working on her face, and she's still talking like nothing. And then go, wait, what are you doing? You get out the shot. And I was wishing at that moment that I had something like that. Oh, someone just come in and take care of this sweat. It's horrible. But
Michelle?
We met. That's the funny thing. The soap world, the entertainment world is small, but the soap world even smaller still. And a bunch of us know each other. Alex Walters, who played Mark Kasnoff, he was the one who introduced me to Michelle. He had a massive crush on her. He said, "Go to meet this girl," and she was just terrific. And though we don't talk all the time, we spoke a few years ago. There was she was also such a savvy businesswoman. There was an opportunity that she's so smart. There was an opportunity that I thought would work really well for her with her business, and so we gave her a call, and we talked for a little while about it, but it just never ended up happening. But yeah, Michelle is awesome. Love her. I wish we got to talk more.
I love that. I have to share this, and I'm so glad she wrote it because I had written it down to share it. But Jennifer Rojas said, I named my son Diego after your character from As the World Turns many years ago.
Wow.
I absolutely loved your character and your name. So my 23-year-old son is named Diego from you.
Wow. Hola, Diego. Holy crow. That's spectacular. Wow. It's so funny. I was, one of the things I was talking about with my wife just yesterday is how amazing it is where one decision that you make, as small as it may be, can have profound effects on so many others around you, these rippling effects that you don't even think about. It could be something as simple.
And you don't know for 27 years today that I just shared.
I had no idea. I had no idea, right? And so and I often wondered, I wonder if it had any kind of effect on anyone that watched the show, or if they just thought, okay, let's go on to the next show and see, or if it just went right over their head. So it's nice to hear something like that, something as deeply important as a name.
Seriously, Diego lives on.
Yes, and it's funny for me. The name that I took for my dog was Skyfall. So similarly, the media has had an effect on me. In another year, he could have been named Spectre, but obviously I'm a big James Bond fan.
Yeah, I'm named Alan after Alan King. My parents loved the comedian Alan King.
Oh, you're kidding. I love Alan King. He was so funny. He told a great story about being in the hospital and playing a prank on the nurse, where he was asked for a urine sample and said, okay, no problem. And so what he did is he gave her the apple juice that was on the counter, and then she came back. She goes, "Oh, it looks a little cloudy."
I'm impressed that you know much of his comedy.
Oh, for sure, especially this one where he takes the cloudy, urine sample. He goes, well, let's give it another run. He drinks it down.
That's wild. Well, another mutual friend reached out to me last night. I didn't realize you worked with Gregory J. Martin.
Yes. Gregory, man, he directed me in a film, The South Side,
that he wrote and produced.
That he wrote, and this is based on a real relative of his, and it was and what was really cool is I got to see like Ms. Dolan again. That was a lot of fun. So and there were a lot of other people that I got to work with. Christos, that was just really
Christos Andrews,
yes, Christos Andrews.
There's a ton of people he told me were in it. I was blown
Kevin
away.
Mambo. Kevin
was on Guiding Light.
That was
Nicola Fiona Hutchison.
Yes, Fiona Hutchison. Yep, she was another one who was in it. It was so cool to be a part of that too. It was
and he said it was based on his cousin.
Yep, it's based on his cousin. Something that a real event that actually happened, and a tragic one, where he was killed, and at such a young age was just like heartbreaking. So it's another one of those things where you say, hey, look, you've got to take this part seriously because I'm playing a real person, and I want to do justice to it and make sure that I'm doing justice to the subject, because once again you have a responsibility to not only do the part right but also to honor the people that it's about.
Very, very true. Well, talk about Wild Card.
Yeah, so Wild Card, that was shot that in Toronto, and that was the show with Jolie Fisher and Radon Chong. Radon is another one of my favorite people on the planet. Just so funny. That was another surreal thing, because she was someone I'd been so admiring of as forever.
I just saw her in something not too long ago.
Yeah, she was in what's it? The Vampire. The interview with the man was
yeah.
She was in that
series, the new series, right?
Correct.
Oh, I love that. Did you watch it?
Yes. If Radon was in, I'm going to watch it. She's the greatest. But I think she likes my wife a lot more than me. That's how it goes. But yeah, it was so much fun working with her, and also, I really developed some lifelong friendships from that show, including Vicky Krinsky, who's this really well-known chef Vicky Krinsky, and Don Franklin, who's been a gajillion things. He used to be on Young Riders, and he's and what's that, Sequest? He was on that for many years. But it was interesting living somewhere else in another country. So even though we sometimes again can be a little obnoxious, Canada's not really another country. Yes, it is. But it's also a little bit like
it's not home.
It's not home. It's almost like you've stepped into a Twilight Zone version of the U.S., at least for you, because they sound American, kind of, but the stores are a little different. Well, it's weird, but it was a really unique experience getting to do that, and to also, once again, now I'm one of the higher numbers on the call sheet. So once again, that responsibility of making sure that the culture is as good as possible was definitely present.
You'll appreciate this. I've told it once before, but I had Bill and Susan Seaforth Hayes from Days of Our Lives. They are married, who have been on Days of Our Lives for like 50 years. And in 2018, they received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Emmys. And one of the men who recorded a video was Bryan Cranston.
Oh, wow.
Who was a day player on Days of Our Lives and was late. Like woke up late, or some story of truly, talk about sweat, and arrives, and Bill Hayes just sort of like Brooke did for you, just take it easy.
Yeah.
It happens to everybody. And Bryan, I don't think has ever seen Bill since, but It had such a huge impact. He wanted to do that for the Emmys.
Yeah, it really, things like that absolutely do, especially when you realize, for example, one thing that I've always been very good at is memorizing my lines. So that's been something I've always been. Even as a little kid, I could memorize lines pretty well. However, I got a little cocky about that one day, and it was actually on the As the World Turns set, and I kept going up on my lines because I didn't work as hard the night before as I should have.
Who was opposite you that day? Do you remember?
It was Martha, and Martha, but she was laughing along with me, but she was doing fine on her lines. I wasn't, and afterward, I got a talking to from the executive producer. She really lit into me, and properly so. And I don't think she was expecting how quickly I would own up to realizing she was right, because what I came to understand, you're a young actor, you don't know anything, you're young, fresh, and silly. But that's a few $1,000s every time they've got to do that thing. It's not like, the Dick Clark blooper show. Everybody's laughing. It's the greatest thing when it's a blooper. No, it's not. When that camera's rolling, money is being spent. It's getting burned.
But I still love the bloopers, Bronson.
I do too. But you can't be making them on purpose.
I probably have a good DVD downstairs from As the World Turns, a blooper reel.
And they can be great, but you can't, keep it happening over and over.
100%. It is money, but
it is. Yeah. But and there's some people where they're working, where like someone else whose work ethic that I absolutely love, that someone else that I learned from, even though he doesn't realize it's Grillo, Frank Grillo, who used to be on Guiding Light, and we became friendly early on, even though we almost never see one. We'd see each other out in LA every once in a while, but he is one of the most disciplined, focused guys, and it's such a it's just a good role model for taking every bit of work you do seriously, because he does, and it shows. I mean, he's about my age, and the guy's shredded. I don't know if you've seen a picture of this guy with his shirt off. But it's like the statue of David looks at him and goes, "Oh man, I really need to work."
I got to work with him and Wendy on Guiding Light just before they left.
Yeah. Wendy has been great on Yellowstone. That's another. Oh man, I love that show. Do you watch that?
Love that show.
Oh my gosh, it's so
talk
good.
About a talented group of people. And
right.
Teeter.
Yeah,
is from As the World Turns.
What? Really?
Yeah.
I love her. Holy smokes! And that crazy marble mouth.
The marbles in her mouth.
She's one of my favorite.
Do you know who she is?
No.
Michael Landon's daughter.
Holy smokes! That is
Jen Landon. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I tell you, the people that have been on that show, I have absolutely no idea about. It's incredible.
And Beth, the character of Beth, is phenomenal.
Yes. Oh, she is really good. What's incredible too is these people coming in from other countries who do the American accent so well now, and she's one of them. It's stunning. It's stunning.
It blows your mind. Yeah, it really, really does.
Because it wasn't always so.
Say it again.
Because it wasn't always so. There was a time probably about like 30, 35 years ago when Brits would try to affect an American accent. It was never quite right. Now I don't know who's who. I have no idea. They blend in with us.
Yeah. When you all of a sudden hear somebody, speak on an interview, and then you're like, holy crap.
What is this?
I had no clue.
Exactly. The Walking Dead was like that.
Yeah.
Andrew Lincoln's like, that'd be great.
Right, Andrew Lincoln. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All of them. There are a bunch of them where you hear them in interviews.
It's always mind blowing. Yeah, and Beth is one of them on Yellowstone for sure.
Yeah, she's terrific. That ballsy presence that she always had. What's really wonderful with an actor is when something happens in a scene, and then that actor walks into the room playing whatever the character is, and heard what just went on. And all of a sudden, you as an audience member sit back and go, "Uh-oh." she's one of them.
Totally. It was uh-oh a lot. If she was walking into a room or leaving a room to go, take on somebody, it was uh-oh all the time with her. Uh-oh all the time. That is so funny. Well, we have to talk about your greatest role. Dad.
Oh, there's that. Yes.
How has fatherhood changed your life?
Oh man, well, having Shane and Lauren. So my son Shane, he's 17. My daughter Lauren, she's 13. She's gonna be 14 at the end of this month, and that is another wonderful exercise in humility. Something that many parents know is that it is the easiest thing in the world to raise kids who are not yours from a distance, because you can say, "Oh, here's what you should be doing: this, that, and the other." Then your kids will just be wonderful. But when they're yours, it's a completely different ball game. All of a sudden, all those tricks and tips and things that you thought were going to just be like magic don't work quite so well because you're dealing with personalities as human beings. And suddenly you realize, okay, I think I got to put on the humble hat. So there's been a lot of prayer throughout my time with my kids, but it's also been one of the greatest things ever. I love my kids.
Is it possible that your son is watching us right now?
It's possible. It's very possible. Hi, Shane. What's up, my boy? What's great too is
because he just said hi, Dad. So if it is,
oh, did he really? Hey,
I don't know if that is him, but it might be because he said Shane, that's me, and said hi, Dad. Unless a fan has the same name, Shane, but
I have a suspicion it probably is him.
Okay.
He's very adept with the computer and getting online and everything else, and he's also really just this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful boy that I'm very blessed to have. He makes me laugh, and it's and my daughter the same thing. I can't believe how lucky I got with these two.
Do you see any signs of them following in Dad's acting footsteps?
See, I see it, but they don't. Right. So my daughter, she's, for example, someone who is very comfortable being entertaining and very funny. My son, he is much drier as far as a sense of humor.
Is this him, do you think?
It could be. I don't, you know what? Hold on a second. Let me zoom in on that. My own eyes. I don't know. I'm not sure. It could be. How many pseudonyms do you have, kid?
So it might not be. I don't know.
But what's also funny is how unimpressed they are with you as an actor when you're on television. Like, it was very funny. I was doing a show on CBS called Hostages, and I played this doctor. And, yes. Oh, yep, my wife says it's him. Nope. That's true. I got a note from my producer, also known as my wife, that yes, indeed, it is him.
Thank you, producer.
I was named after a TV character from And Then Came Bronson. Yes, indeed.
You were?
Yes, that television show with Michael Park. We had a guy who rode around on a motorcycle and solved people's problems. My dad loved that show and thought, that's a cool name. And that's how I ended up becoming Bronson. So it was.
Tell me the show name again.
And Then Came Bronson.
Oh, I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's
oh yeah.
I think Renegade many years later tried to emulate that series, but
and it's so funny. I thought you were, because Michael Park was on As the World Turns. Was he there when you were there?
No,
because he came very shortly after you left.
Because I could guarantee you we would have had that conversation.
That's there. That is wild. So you were named after somebody, and Jennifer named her son after you.
No, it's amazing that didn't occur to me at the time. And this is why
I know
it's so important for me to rely on my producer, aka my wife.
Pay that producer a lot more money.
Yes, indeed. Someone else I'm very blessed to have in my life. Thank God we met.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love that your son pointed out that you were named after a TV character.
Well, yeah. And he was too. The movie Shane. That's why we named him Shane. And also our daughter Lauren, because we were friendly with Lauren Bacall, who, by the way, hated her name. So Betty. So we all call her Betty. So when we told her, so we named our daughter after you. She goes, "Oh, it's a horrible name. Why would you do that?"
That is amazing. That is truly incredible. Do you have a favorite role you've played to date?
Yeah, but definitely, without hesitation, Diego Santana.
It gave you a lot to play.
It did, but it was also the experience. It was really more than just the character. It was really just the entire experience of being on that particular set, working with those particular people. I've always hoped that I could have something like that again, and nothing's ever quite reached that level. I've worked with wonderful people, had great time with lots of folks, but that was special. That really, to this day, I still think about it.
My friend, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. Really
thank you for having me on, Alan. I love talking with you again. It's been a while.
Absolutely. We should grab a drink sometime in the city. I would love that.
Yes, please do. On me. Those rounds are on me.
Doesn't have to be. Be well, my friend. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Bronson Picket, for joining me today. Please join me next Wednesday, May 24th, for an important mental health conversation with Dr. Sharissa Chamorro, Brian McGovern from Ryan's Hope, and Michelle Ray Smith from Guiding Light. If you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so down below. If you like today's episode, click the like button. And if you want to stream an audio version, just search The Locker Room on your favorite streaming platform. Have a great weekend, everybody. And as always, please stay safe.